Hello and welcome to Pockenrop. In this video I'm going to be doing my review of the year 2024, but as I was last year I am joined by a guest, which is my son Joel.
Hello.
We're going to give you our top 15 albums of the year. We're also going to mention a few honourable mentions and some Pockenrop awards. So before we do that, I would remind you, if you've not already done so, to subscribe, to click the thumbs up to like the video, the bell for notifications of future content, and to share it with somebody who may like the video as we aim to increase subscriber count and heading towards 250, at which point I will do another live stream because it was great fun doing the one last year. So before we go into our top 15, we're going to mention some things that fell outside that honourable mentions. So very briefly, I would highlight... I'll do an edit there. So very briefly, I would highlight Cowboy Carter by Beyonce. I actually quite liked it. No Name by Jack White. Luck and Strange by Dave Gilmour, the guitarist of Pink Floyd, which has a real feel of 1970s Pink Floyd. Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. And The Cure, Songs of a Lost World. These are all albums that I may well listen to again over the next couple of years, and when I do my re-ranking in 2 years' time, maybe there's been some shifting and movement, but at the moment, they just fell outside.
My honourable mentions are Jess by Jess Glynne. Decent pop album. Wasn't really what I wanted from a Jess Glynne album. Brat by Charlie XCX, which is a decent album, but it is...
That's been appearing on a lot of people's top lists this year, Brat. I didn't like it at all.
I think, this is what I said to my friends, it's a list of loops, but in a very well thought out way, but they're still just a list of loops. And then California Gold by Nate Smith, which would have been in my top 15 if the song Rather Be Lonely from the EP that he released at the start of the year was on it, but it's not, unfortunately.
So let's go in. At number 15, I have placed Ampersand by Bastille. Joel's a big fan of Bastille, and I decided to give the album a listen. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I got. Every song is something and something in its title, with an ampersand in the middle of it. And so it's almost a concept album. The songwriting on the record is terrific, really well thought out. So there's Leonard and Marianne, Marie and Polonium, intros and narrators. It's a very soft, focused, quite acoustic album, generally speaking. It would be way higher because I think it might well be one of the best written albums of the year, were it not for the lead vocalist's very strange inflections on some of his songs. This would be a really, really high up album if somebody else had sung it. Ampersand by Bastille at number 15 for me.
My number 15 is Fireworks and Rollerblades by Benson Boone. Decent pop album. I feel stronger about this than my 15 last year, which was I kind of put on there because I needed a 15th.
Okay.
But Beautiful Things.
Beautiful Things is a good song.
Good song.
Number one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was number one. Slow It Down, which is the other single from it, is a good song, and There She Goes is also decent.
My number 14 is the first album on this list that I own, and it's Mandrake Project by Bruce Dickinson. This was higher, but I haven't listened to it in a while. The two best tracks on here are not eligible for 2024 track of the year, and they are Afterglow of Ragnarok, which is the lead single, came out last year, and Eternity Has Failed, which is a reworking of a song that Maiden nicked off him when he was originally working back in 2015, which is If Eternity Should Fail. This is now If Eternity Has Failed. But it's a terrific song. It's one of my favourite Maiden songs. And so, because it came out in 2015, really, I couldn't even include it as an inclusion on here. But Rain on the Graves, that is in my potential top 20 songs of the year. Mandrake Project, my number 14.
My number 14, I originally didn't like, and it is Ampersand by Bastille.
Almost a crossover.
The reason I didn't like it initially is because I wanted a Give Me the Future or
Bad Blood.
Bad Blood, and it's not that.
Nothing like those.
Not far from them. I wanted those because I really like those albums.
It's a songwriter's album.
Yeah, but I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. Yeah. Then I re-listened to it in the car with Dad I was a bit annoyed with him because he had turned off my music, and I really enjoyed it listening to it like that.
My number 13. When I first listened to this album, I thought she was almost a clone of somebody else. It was very, very similar, and it's Gracie Abrams' The Story of Us. The person who I thought she was cloning will come up a bit later. It's a good pop album. Key track on it for me is Risk. It's perfectly fine. Story of Us, Gracie Abrams. It's my number 13.
My number 13 is a little bit of a fall from grace from a really great artist who from the last decade even, and it is Radical Optimism by Dua Lipa. Yeah. It's a good album. It's just not
perfectly fine.
Anywhere near to as good as her debut or
it's not a patch on Future Nostalgia.
Yeah, not even close to Future Nostalgia. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's my favourite track
if
on the
it's
album.
on, we wouldn't turn it off, is how we...
Yeah, my favourite track on the album is Illusion. Right. Just not as good as either of her previous ones.
Number 12. This album, when I first listened to it, was exhausting. Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. It is Taylor Swift that I think Gracie Abrams was channeling, should we say. Bit like Midnights from 2 years ago. Half of the tracks on this album are great. So I absolutely love the title track. The one that refers to, that we said we agreed that Charlie Puth should be a bigger artist. What a line. I quite like Fortnight, the one with Post Malone. But then there's other really good songs. My Boy Only Breaks His Favourite Toys and Goodbye to London. I really, I think I'm going to grow to actually really like the Tortured Poets Department. My number 12.
I couldn't be bothered to listen to it because I've grown so tired with Taylor Swift this year. She is everywhere. My number 12 is The Great Impersonator by Halsey. I like Halsey. I really like Halsey. This album isn't the best. It's not as good as Manic. It's very depressing, and understandably so, because earlier this year she was diagnosed with lupus.
Yeah. Just as she felt she got her life sorted in the way she wanted to be.
I liked
really sad.
I really liked two of the three singles released before the album were released, Lucky and Lonely as the Muse. The end was alright. And then I quite liked the single released after the album came out, which was Ego. Because of how depressing it is, other than those three tracks, there aren't really that many standouts, even though it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
My number 11, the Pet Shop Boys, nonetheless. And it's classic Pet Shop Boys. And I'm always going to be up for that. Schlager Hit Parade is a joyful track. Really, really enjoyable. And the rest of it, I haven't listened to it as much as I perhaps should have done, but I know when it goes on that it's classic Pet Shop Boys, and it's going to feel like I'm listening to Actually, or sometimes even Behaviour. My number 11, nonetheless, by the Pet Shop Boys.
My number 11 is Head Split by Maggie Lindemann. It's a decent album. At the start of the year, I liked it. Then it moved out. Then it moved back in. Die For is a really good track from it. Hostage is a really good track from it. But it would be higher if it wasn't for the song Deprecating, which is her mandatory screamy song for the album, and it's worse than both previous screamy songs from Paranoia and Sucker Punch. And it is, as an album, it is weaker than both of those albums as well.
It's interesting, isn't it, how one song can really affect your entire opinion of a record, because that happened last year with the Lathams.
Yeah.
That final track is so bad. Yeah. So, it's time to do one of the Pockenrop Awards, and this will be for Disappointment of the Year. Now, this could be an event, this could be a news story, it could be a record or an album. So, Joel, have you got your Disappointment of the Year?
Mine is probably Dua Lipa.
Really?
Yeah.
I can understand why, because I was quite... On the strength of Future Nostalgia, I was quite looking forward to that.
I think it's a good album, but disappointing.
I've got a few candidates. So the first one is the complete and utter lack of any further archive editions from Sir Paul McCartney. I can only conclude the archive collection is dead. Nothing's been released now since the release of Flaming Pie in 2020. We still don't have London Town and Back to the Egg from Wings, just to complete the Wings era. I mean, it's annoying, let alone disappointing. The next one is the Beatles themselves. We all thought we were going to get the remastered, remixed Rubber Soul, possibly as 1965 with help as well. And what we got was a white vinyl edition of Hard Day's Night and the box set nobody asked for of the American albums from 1964. The next candidate is a very personal one, and it's the retirement of Mike Nolan from The Fizz. 40 years ago he nearly died. The fact that he's continued going is great, but there comes a time, I guess. The other two are carrying on, but it's not The Fizz for me without Mike Nolan. He was the first pop star that I kind of wanted to be. But my disappointment of the year is actually an album. The Coward Brothers, which is T-Bone Burnett and Elvis Costello. Now, my anticipation for this record was astonishingly high. I was stoked. I ordered it the moment I saw it was coming out, because I thought, fantastic, because these two guys did a single called The People's Limousine back in 1985, which is great. So I thought, I'm getting more of the Coward Brothers after all this time. Plus, Elvis's last album, The Boy Named If, made me excited for Costello again in a way that I hadn't been for 20 plus years. I hate this. Really
should have thrown it
hate
harder.
it. And it can only be my disappointment of the year.
Yeah.
So let's get back to some good stuff with the top 10. Yeah, why not?
My number 10 is Older by Lizzie McAlpine.
Never heard of her.
And this is entirely because of two amazing tracks, which are All Falls Down and I Guess. All Falls Down is the only really optimistic isn't the right word, happy-ish song on the album.
Okay.
Everything else is quite slow. It's she's been described as an Billie Eilish ripoff, which is fair.
Okay.
And then I Guess, which is the really good slow track on the album. Broken Glass is also pretty good, but those two tracks carry the album so hard. Outside of that, it's a good album, but outside of those two tracks, elevate it to my number 10. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My number 10, you know what you're getting with Paul Heaton. What you're not getting, unfortunately, is Jackie Abbott, because she seems to be, I think she's taken a back seat again. Whether or not he'll work with her again, I don't know, because the Heaton and Abbott albums are really good run. But this feels like one. He's brought in a couple of other female vocalists that sing on a couple of tracks. And so it has the feel of Heaton and Abbott. It has the feel of Beautiful South. It's a Paul Heaton record. You know what you're getting in terms of the songwriting on there. I would highlight virtually all of the first half of the album, like National Treasure, Quicksand, Fish and Chip Supper is in contention of my song of the year. H into Hurt, Silly Me, Small Boats, and it's a really solid album. Paul Heaton's The Mighty Several. It's my number 10.
My number 9 is Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going by Shabuzi. I think it's a really great country hip-hop crossover album, which is probably why
It tumbled out of my
it tumbled
top
out of
15.
yours, because it's hip-hop crossover.
First listen, I thought, wow, this was a real surprise. But the second listen was like,
I really like the album opener, Horses and Hellcats. That's a bar song, Tipsy.
Tipsy's fun.
It's just fun.
number one hit single, I think.
I like Last of My Kind. My favourite track on the album by far is My Fault, which is probably the least hip-hop song on the album. There's Sealer From Me, which kind of saves the ending of the album from ending on a sour note.
My number 9, Gary by Blossoms. I discovered Blossoms 2 years ago with Ribbon Around the Bomb, and it featured in my re-ranking and had gone up quite a bit. I didn't like Gary the first time I heard it because I was listening to it on YouTube Music and they were using the video versions, which had got breaks in the middle of songs. It ruined the flow. The title track, Gary, is in contention for my Song of the Year. It's about the theft of a fiberglass gorilla from a garden centre. And it's just such a daft title for a song. Cinnamon's a lovely song on here. Big Star's a good way to open the album. And I Like Your Style. They're a quirky-ish band. But it was nearly a disappointment. But the more I listened to it, the more I grew to like Gary. And you've got to... That's a great front cover, isn't it?
Yeah.
So fun.
My number 8 is Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. I think it's a good album. Probably her weakest, because I really like Sabrina Carpenter. The entire first half of the album is really great, with the standouts being Taste and Please Please Please, which were the singles. Espresso's alright.
Okay, my number 8. Joel would never have this in his list. Joel would never listen to this. Richard Thompson's Ship to Shore. It's a Richard Thompson album. You know what you're getting if you know anything by Richard Thompson. Singapore Sadie is really good. The Fear Never Leaves You is a dark and brooding track. And it's my number 8.
My number 7 is Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. This was quite a surprise to me because I didn't like it. I was indifferent to Billie Eilish before this year.
It's an alright album.
Good symbol. I thought she had good singles, terrible albums that were really boring because she couldn't stop whispering. But then this album, even the whispery, slow songs have melody, which cannot be said about Happier Than Ever. The greatest is the climax of the album right in the centre, and it's the best song on the album.
My number 7, I can't currently purchase. I don't know how I can get it. I would like it. It is Mac Powell, I Love Jesus. Mac Powell was the lead singer for Third Day, and I just love his voice. And that's always going to carry the album. But the songs on here are really good. I want a copy of it. I haven't got a huge amount more to say about it, except the fact that it's a Mac Powell album. And a bit like Richard Thompson, it almost gets a free pass as a result. My number 7, I Love Jesus by Mac Powell.
My number 6 is my biggest surprise of the year, and it is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. I didn't like hip hop until this year, and then Not Like Us came out by Kendrick Lamar, which was a diss track on Drake, and took over the world for a few weeks, and it's really good. So I decided to listen to this album when it came out a couple months ago, and it's a really good rap album. My favourite track on the album is Whacked Out Murals, which will narrowly lose to Not Like Us as my Song of the Year by Kendrick. I really like TV Off, which has probably my favourite moment of the year with him yelling mustard for no reason. And then Reincarnated, which is sort of like a little bit of a letter to God. I don't know if he's Christian. I'm assuming not, but it's a good song. Anyway.
Okay. My number 6 was a contender for Surprises of the Year. And it's Conan Gray, Found Heaven. This is not my copy, it is my daughter's. She put it on in the car when we went to a car boot, made me listen to it, and it was revelatory. This is an 80s throwback album. There's elements of Erasure, Human League. There's even a track on here called Fainted Love. Now, if that's not a callback and a joke towards Soft Cell's Tainted Love, I don't know what is. Winner is the closing track on here, is phenomenal. I have listened to his previous album and I didn't like it, but Found Heaven, I would like to get my own copy of this. Into the top 5 then, and I don't know about you, Joel, but these 5 are streets ahead of everything else. It's not even a contest for
my
me.
top 5 is, if I was comparing my number 5 to GNX, it would be like, I wouldn't even have to think.
But at number 5, This album brought an emotional reaction in me when I listened to it, and it's Fathers and Sons by Luke Combs. Now, you've heard me mention Luke Combs on his channel before. He's been on the last 2-year videos because he's released an album a year, one of which was even a double. But Fathers and Sons was an album I wasn't expecting. It's all on that topic. It's effectively almost a concept album. The opening track, Front Door Famous, I heard and I was like, whoa, this has really got me. Little Country Boys, about his two kids, his two sons growing up. Just let them be little country boys. It's absolutely fantastic. There's songs about him and his father. There's even a song right at the end, Take Me to the Ball Game, which is about a family that's broken up and how the kid is only getting to see his dad at the weekends, and so Take Me to the Ball Game. And that was slightly left field. It was an emotional reaction to this album, particularly that opening track. Fathers and Sons by Luke Combs is my number 5.
My number 5 has been mentioned already by Dad, and it is Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams. I really like this album. I don't think it's a Taylor Swift ripoff. I think it's too folky for that.
Yeah, folklore. It's very folklorish. Which
I haven't listened to it, so, and I'm not going to.
Was it produced by Jack Antonoff by any chance?
No idea. Strongest song on the album, as Dad said, is Risk. It's a really strong song. I really like Blowing Smoke. I really like Close to You. I really like it. The Risk was the lead single, but the most successful single from the album was I Love You, I'm Sorry, which is a good song, a really good song. Let It Happen's really good. And then, while this doesn't technically count because it's from the deluxe edition, That's So True is brilliant. And it's been... No, I was really rooting for it to get Christmas number 1 over Last Christmas. Because Last Christmas sucks.
Yeah, Last Christmas does suck.
And I know it's not a Christmas song,
hate that
but That's So True is really good.
Yeah. My number 4. Now, this is the Pockenrop Award for Biggest Surprise of the Year. I would never have remotely considered that this was going to be as good as it is. F1 Trillion by Post Malone. Wow.
I wasn't as surprised as him.
A great country record. The songwriting on this album is so good. Now, Post Malone is a rap artist, yeah? Rap, hip-hop?
Hip-hop.
A lot was made this year of Beyonce doing a country album, which isn't that much of a country album. Post Malone did a country album that absolutely is a country album.
Yeah, I saw people saying...
Full of collaborations with country artists. And there's so many good songs on here that it's probably my country album of the year as well, which is edging out Luke Combs, who was a country artist. Luke Combs appears on here twice and co-writes about 6 or 7 songs. What a great album. I'm not going to mention many of the tracks on here for a simple reason that I won't need to. But Post Malone, it's my number 4. Let me just pass it to you for reasons.
My number 4 is Saviours by Green Day. Love Green Day.
We
Good
do.
album.
One of the highlights of the year was seeing them live.
Even though they only played 4 songs from Saviours because they were too busy doing Dookie and American Idiot.
Less Dookie, more Saviours. We would have thought it was the perfect concert, actually.
I agree. Opening track, The American Dream is killing me, even though it came out last year. Great. Same with Look Ma No Brains. Dilemma is really great. Coma City's fun. Strange Days Are Here to Stay is probably the best song on the album. And then Living in the 20s, I do really like, except for the line Living in the 20s, I don't think it works. But other than that, I do really like the song.
Because it's my number 3. I've got the vinyl. I concur with everything he just said. I love Father to Son. Fancy Sauce feels like it's Basket Case 30 years older.
And a bit slower.
Yeah. Up and down like a yo-yo. It's on the same thematics. It's a 9 out of 10 album.
Yeah.
And yet I've only got that at number 3.
My number 3 is Deeper Well by Casey Musgraves. It's a really nice album.
It's beautiful.
There are a couple times where she tries to sound a little bit angry, and I don't think her voice suits that. But none that I can picture, because she makes it sound like she's not angry. Just the lyrics make it sound a little bit angry. But in terms of standout tracks, I really like Cardinal. Song on the album is definitely Architect, though Cardinal does come close. I really like Jade Green. I really like Lonely Millionaire. That one kind of snuck up on me a little bit. And then Sway is just nice.
Yeah. My number 2 was probably my most hotly anticipated release of the year. When I suddenly found out that it was coming out, and it is the Lemon Twigs, A Dream Is All We Know. Their album Everything Harmony was my album of the year last year, and I still think it's an absolutely gorgeous and beautiful album. This I don't think quite reaches the summit of Everything Harmony, but it's not far off. This is a much more of a happy-go-lucky, good time up album. It's so Beach Boys influenced, but there's influence of Wings and Beatles in here. They wear their influences on their sleeves, and it's all the better for it, because they write songs that go where you don't expect them to musically, but then still work absolutely brilliantly. So Golden Years is in contention for my song of the year, but I also like A Dream Is All We Know, Peppermint Roses, Church Bells, and If You and I Are Not Wise. And it's a really enjoyable album. Like I say, it's not close to how good Everything Harmony is, but it's still 9 out of 10, which shows you how good Everything Harmony is. It's my number 2 album of the year.
My number 2 album of the year is Post Malone. It's a lot of fun. I was personally less surprised than Dad, because I did like an awful lot of his hip hop stuff, like Circle. Well, Circle's a pop song.
Would I like his hip hop stuff, do you think?
Probably not. My favourite song on the album is I Had Some Help, which is the lead single. With Morgan Wallen, even though I don't like Morgan Wallen.
I don't particularly like Morgan Wallen.
But I Had Some Help.
Guy for That
is
with
decent.
Luke Combs.
MEXICO,
yes.
Yes, that one's just fun.
Yes.
Probably my second favourite 2 seconds of the year are her monster boyfriend busted in with an AK-47 from that song. Yours, Right About You, I think is really nice. I wrote Nosedive.
What a song.
Right About You has the lyrics.
Word painting and everything.
I wrote songs about sinning, evil women, pills and cars. I wrote songs about drinking until you walked in and raised the bar. I think there's a very good chance he continues making much more wholesome songs. I also really like Wrong
Make
Ones,
more of this, please, Post Malone.
Even as much as
Really
I do like some
more
of your
of this.
hip hop stuff, this is too good to stop doing.
Yeah.
This should not be a one-off.
Our number 1s.
You first.
It's already been mentioned.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I went into a record shop, in this case HMV, heard something playing, and bought it on the strength of what I was hearing. But this did that. Deeper Well by Casey Musgraves. It's my album of the year. It's my discovery of the year, because I'd never heard of her. Listening to it, I was thinking that Alison Krauss had got a new album out. It's that purity of tone in her vocals.
Yeah.
There's so many songs on here that feel like wrapping yourself up in a blanket on a sofa. Joel's mentioned many tracks already. Cardinal, Deeper Well, Sway. Dinner with Friends has got an absolutely lovely left field chorus in it. Heart of the Woods, Jay Green. The Architect is standout. That was the point at which I Shazammed the record to find out who it was and decided I was buying a copy. Then there's Heaven Is. You didn't like this track, but I really like Anime Eyes. It's a
Anime
fun
Eyes
song.
is why it's not above F1 Trillion
But it's
for me.
It's a blanket.
Because
It's a lovely, wonderful, beautiful album. This is 10 out of 10 territory.
Well, I know what my favourite song in the decade so far is, and it's actually probably the least surprising thing on this list for me, because I heard it and knew it was going to be my number one before it came out, probably. But yeah, it's Clancy by 21 Pilots. I love 21 Pilots.
So, Joel had the experience this year of anticipating an album by an artist he was already into, and it meeting those expectations.
I think
That's
it's better
a
than
rare
Trench.
and special thing.
I think it's better than Trench.
There's tracks on here
Yeah.
I like, but it's not in my top albums of the year.
Overcompensate. I watched the live stream for this album when it came out. Not this album, this song when it came out. I couldn't watch the album live stream because I was asleep because it was, 2 in the morning.
It's your album of the year.
Yeah, next semester. I didn't think much of Next Semester when it came out as a single, just before the album came out, but it's now one of my favourites.
Semester.
Navigating is best song on the album. Craving's really heartfelt and nice. Routines in the Night, I don't think you liked, but I like that one. It's Oldies Station is beautiful, and Paladin Strait is a brilliant album ending. The only problem I have with it is that the last chorus of Paladin Strait takes place a minute and a half after the song ends. Lavish is the only thing holding this back from being a perfect album.
Okay.
And Lavish is not that bad, it's just kind of silly.
So, that concludes our rundown of 2024. There will be a companion video to this, which will be our rundown of Songs of the Year. So please look out for that. But until then, I'd remind you to subscribe if you've already done so, to click the thumbs up to like the video, the bell for the notifications, the share, and thanks for watching.